Nice to meet you, my name is Anton. Today's video will feature the following tools: Sandbox Universe to explore the Sahara. Actually, we're going to be in a desert. Hello and welcome to Z. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Finding out why this significant amount of completely empty land and talking on the connection between all of this and space regardless, welcome to the map of science. Oh, music. Therefore, the Sahara Desert, which is enormous, removes approximately a third of the total the continent of Africa, and you can as you can see, it continues all the way to the Arabian Peninsula and beyond as an invasion into Iran and even other areas. In actuality, if you were to draw a line, it is clear that it's actually somewhat linear at this point. There is an explanation, and we're going to talking about the reasons for and methods for all of this occurs. And it all consists of based on a number of research that essentially investigated the sedimentary ruins in Sahara and surrounding areas of these nations, then learned that this didn't truly in fact happen. That was a long time ago. Fact, and we'll attempt to imitate this a little bit. Act in this way right now to try to comprehend what occurred in this case. Actually, you would need to travel back 6,000 years. Or even 8,000 years ago when the Sahara was actually entirely covered. It was a lush area that was covered in grass. A large area of grassland covered in vegetation. A lot of really wet weather followed by something began to occur. After that, something could be a little bit challenging. To clarify us, we're preparing to enter a simulation with Earth's and the Sun, both of which I believe that this is adequate, and I'm now going to slow time down a bit. In fact, our world rotates on its axis is currently hidden if you merely run this for a while, but it eventually becomes, when you run the simulation, it becomes clear. In fact, for thousands of years. In actuality, this wobbling is caused by imperfection in Earth's orbit, and it resembles what you would receive if try spinning a top over a table. Additionally, you don't do a great job on the stars. We're swaying back and forth. Earth follows suit. Therefore its real tilt is which is visible if you click here changes, and you can see shifting of acuity right now around 25 degrees, up from about 22 degrees here. Doesn't alter as significantly as this primarily because of the moon, but you can still it is gradually growing in size, so every 40,000 degrees, from around 20 to 25 degrees, nearly 8 years between them. 1,000 years ago, and just now it altered from roughly 24 degree to 23 degrees. To put it another way, if you were to see Africa as it is in reality here, we'll pause in Africa, the real axis altered by approximately this amount at roughly this extent, thus it ought to modify a tiny bit, but this change was sufficient for us to see two things, and additionally there is more than just a change going on. Additional occurrence during that time. However, this change sufficed for the entire equator to move just a little amount, and basically for this area doesn't get as much light. More recently, roughly 8,000 years, there was another item back then, as you most likely are aware that Earth lacks every once in a completely circular orbit, thus particularly in January, it really reaches the times of its during that time, Earth will orbit. Be the planet nearest to the Sun, hence, in this area, it will be in the closest spot, thus in essence, it's going to absorb a great deal more sunshine, and then when it's on the opposite side, it moves to get the least amount of sunlight, but 1,000 years ago, August was actually when it was closest. Hence, it's summertime here. A certain area received a lot. 8,000 years ago, there was light. This area here experienced a lot of far more sunlight, and as a result of this made it simpler for vegetation to, as a result of the vegetation, roll here. Grew so quickly here, and because of this more rain during the monsoon season, flora did what flora did. The genuine plants achieved this by actually retaining then release the moisture back, adding extra rain to the air. Thus it resembled a cycle, so that you understand, for in this instance, the present it's raining here, and the raindrops hit the ground, the vegetation, and keep the water. Then they let it go again into the increase the rain and environment, so that, and specifically, this area is what's taking place as a result of the monsoon due to the rain and extreme heat are being received here by this region. Nevertheless, as the temperature dropped, it actually reached a stage where the monsoon began to fail, and because of this, vegetation began to shrivel up. As consequently, we retreated while producing. Ironically, look at this area of barren soil. The justification for Sahara in this, not because it became hotter, but since it received less in reality sunlight as a result of the tilt change, and because of the shortened distance to the obviously, though, after approximately 22 it will occur once more in 30,000 years. More sunlight, and as a result possibilities that this area will be abundant with again. There is a lot of vegetation. But prior to them, we are essentially stranded in this vast desert region as a result of effectively the extinction of all vegetation. There could be further causes for now. Vegetation to disappear, as in the case of a human action or perhaps an animal. Nevertheless, there is no evidence of any of that only evidence that vegetation exists and that the monsoon rains have vanished, become less common, and as a result, although the certification rose, that's in fact not the end of the story. In actuality, there is something else that is now occurring much more quickly, so the tilt I indicated earlier has in fact started to pick up speed in the most recent. In fact, we have been around for it, didn't understand until lately that the tilting effect has now accelerated. Keep in mind that one of the causes of our because of tilt is not more extreme. The moon really stabilizes the moon. Our slant and enables us to refrain from leaning excessively at the rate of tilt, not actually aided by the moon. In actuality, the tilt speed is aided by the massive weight that the poles in the north and south form do, as well as all of the ice present here. Cap began to melt, particularly to the right. In Greenland, many of these icebergs' caps have already begun to melt, and I'm going to mimic this by carrying out I basically moved the ground after me, and a great deal nearer to the sun as these ice water began to melt completely under the caps. Type of spread across the remainder of the northern and the oceans, so the southern pole began to rapidly lose mass. Mostly due to their weight, and because of our Earth began it so quickly in the actual tilting impact, in other words, has increased, and as a result will experiencing more seasonal changes now, and this of changes much more frequently. Course has a significant impact on specifically the rain monsoons weather, for instance, and obviously may truly more people are becoming desertified somewhere. It might not truly give regions sufficient time for different locations to restore the greenery, but it's up to us considering the effects of climate change due to the melting of the ice caps, which you'll observe in a moment. Okay, let's get started. This is a little bit more extreme, but we go with it since now that all of the size is vanishing, be experiencing an increase in desertification in other areas, but insufficient replenishing the deserts themselves, because often it requires some time. It will take us longer to refill the desert places, and what we're seeing now, to put it another way, there's still time. Another issue caused by climate change is primarily constructing the mountain of the caps are likely to basically, you move the burden of the planet around it, causing the planet to tilt axis even more quickly, raising the climate change much more. So where you are, there is still another issue with the climate. From all of the ice caps, change if the elevated water level causes melting was insufficient, we now have a completely to cope with a brand new issue, but yet I guess that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to speak about knowledge of the Sahara Desert and how we believe it formed, and in particular, how different space-related factors, in particular the angle of the the orbital axis, might affect the planet's climate, and how people have adapted actually came up with this peculiar African deserts are. Forgot to share this video on your channel with a person who appreciates learning via video games, and return the following day to learn a new skill you may not have before. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Then take a break as usual. Bye bye.